welcome to another edition of the Interstellar Modeler. In this video, what I'd like to do is feature this kit that I modified last year of the old Battlestar Galactica. Now this is the old Monogram kit that was available for many years. It had been released several times on the market, and this has been really the only official kit of the old Battlestar Galactica. Now if you remember anything about the series, the Galactica was quite a detailed miniature. I think the original miniature measured about 6 feet long, and it had quite a bit of detail on the surface. So when this kit came out, I was actually disappointed because a lot of that detail was missing. So this kit has been sitting on my in my display case for a long time, and I had it painted and weathered, and finally last year I decided to kind of strip it down and give it my best shot of modifying it. So just to remind you what the model looked like, the model lacked a lot of detailing along the sides and the pylons. You can see in this picture that the pylons themselves were incorrect as well. Particularly the center one was all wrong, and the landing bays had a lot to be desired too. If you look at the launch bay tubes, I thought they were too tall, and the front nose piece of each landing bay didn't have any caps or anything. There was basically a hole, and so no matter how you painted or weathered it, it never really looked right. Here's a picture of the actual modification kit, and as you can see, it comes with various pieces that you can add to the side of your model, including the nose piece and the end caps to the landing bays. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about how I detailed the sides. So the modification kit, as I showed you in that picture, came with a number of different pieces that were supposed to fit into the model. So the side pieces were to fit into each of these areas here, here, and here. The pieces unfortunately didn't quite fit didn't easily fit into place, so you did have to trim them. And prior to attaching them to the hull, however, you did have to, of course, sand the hull as flat as you could. And even though there wasn't a lot of detailing on this kit to begin with, there still was some there. So I had to take my Dremel, sand it down, cut the piece to fit, and glued it into place with super glue. Because remember, these are resin pieces. Now the one thing, however, that didn't quite look right was the fact that there was a gap between the piece here and the hull itself. So what I did to fill in that gap was I purchased some styrene plastic rods that were about the same width as the rest of the detailing that you see here on the hull, and cut pieces out to fit into that gap. And it actually worked out pretty well because the pieces look like they actually belong there. So you can get this type of styrene plastic at your hobby store. This is, for example, a company that makes these styrene rods called Evergreen, and this is an example of some styrene rods here. This, of course, is thicker than the ones I used on the model, but they're not terribly expensive, and they're good to have around to help with detailing. Okay, so for the pylons, there were a few other concerns I had with that. So one was that the pieces that came with the detailing kit, as you can see, the pieces are kind of bulky, and that was a particular problem with the pylons here, especially here at the corner. You really couldn't quite get the pieces to fit right, and when I did finally fit them in there, there was a huge gap in that corner, so I decided not to use them. What I did instead was I took some sheet styrene plastic, and I traced the shape of the pylon and ended up cutting some sheet plastic to fit onto the face of each of these pylons. And so essentially that's a blank piece of plastic, obviously. And what I did was I took an old battleship kit that I had and basically pulled parts from it and just started gluing various pieces here to give the sides some detail. Now, one of the things that always bugged me about this kit was this center pylon in particular. When you look at the actual miniature, this arm is separate from this horizontal connection here. So unfortunately, the model came completely molded together, and that really never looked right. So I finally decided to cut it free, and so I decided on a certain amount of thickness here, and then I used a Dremel tool as well as a saw that you can attach to your X-Acto knife to cut this open. And that saw that I'm talking about looks something like this here, and this is something that could slide in place of a regular X-Acto blade, and it has teeth that can cut through, it's made to cut through plastic. It does a pretty good job. So the other thing that I had to do was fill in the top portion of this central piece now because it was basically empty. And what I did was I took the detailing pieces from the pylon sections here that I wasn't using and cut them and shaped them to fill in this gap. So it looks like it's all filled in there, and as well as the other side. So now let's move on to the landing bays. Now there were two main issues I had with the landing bays. First was basically all the missing detail in the nose area here, and certainly all the lack of detailing along the launch tubes here. So let's talk about the nose piece here first. The Monogram kit comes with no detailing here whatsoever. It's basically just a hole. And the detailing kit that I purchased comes with end caps that fit and are shaped to fit into these areas, so it actually looks pretty good. Now the detailing isn't as crisp as I want it to be, but it's better than nothing. The other thing that was missing on the Monogram model was this triangular area right here. It's essentially just a solid piece. There's no detailing there whatsoever. And if you look at this picture of the actual miniature, you'll see the triangular area that I'm talking about. So what I did was I traced with a pencil a triangular area that I wanted to cut out, and again I used my saw to cut the area open. Now if you left it that way, it would be basically a dark hole that you'd be able to look through. So I used some sheet styrene plastic and created a backing. And then I just took some square odds and ends and kind of stuck them in there, and you'll see it somewhat resembles the actual miniature. At least I tried to make it look as close as possible. The other thing I did was I took, again, some styrene rods here to border this to make it look a bit more finished. So let's move on to the launch bay tubes, or the launch tubes I should say. And the launch tubes are represented here by this accordion type structure here. And the Monogram model comes with these in place, but they're much too big. And it's basically you'd have a section here, and then it was flat plastic here, and a section here, and flat plastic, and so forth. So if you look at the actual miniature, there's spacing between each section of launch tubes. So what I had to do here was I took again the saw and cut between here and here, creating a space, and then I used again some styrene plastic sheet to create the backing and the floor in each of these sections. And then I took some styrene plastic rods, cut them to fit, and added some detailing here along the interior. And here again is a picture of the actual studio model, and you can see that there are definitely sections that separate each group of launch tubes. So again, the launch tubes are represented by these accordion type structures along the side of the landing bay. And the Monogram kit really was poorly detailed, and I always thought that the launch tubes looked way too large. So what I did to shorten or shrink down the launch tubes was to apply a piece of styrene plastic that stretches from here all the way down to the other end. And by doing so, it makes the launch tubes look a lot smaller. The other thing I had to do was to drill the holes in each of the launch tubes here to represent the tube that the Vipers would shoot out from to be launched out into space. So it looks a lot more accurate to me. Now, one last detail I wanted to add was lighting the landing bays. Now, if you remember from the original series, the bays had a small glass mural that was painted to give the simulation of the inside of the landing bay. So what I did was I searched the web and found this picture that you see here. This is a picture of the original mural. I took this, pulled it into Photoshop, and then I boosted the colors, sized it accordingly, and then printed it onto some photo paper. And then I glued it onto some very thin styrene plastic and placed it into the landing bay. The bays were then lit up with an LED, and then this gave me the simulation of the original model. So if you look right here, I'm going to go ahead and turn it up here now, you can see the mural sitting inside the launch bay. And this really gives it a nice effect, and to me reproduces what you used to see on screen. So the LEDs are basically placed around here. The wiring is fed through these pylons, and the battery is held in the engine compartment. And one other modification I did make was I added a magnet here that's super glued, or I should say hot glued, onto a piece of metal. And then the other magnet is placed onto the engine piece here. And as you can see, it fits right into place. So it gives me access to the battery whenever I need to change it. So there you have it. I took on this project as a personal challenge to see if I could make this poor kit look any better, and I think these pieces definitely do that. It might not be 100% accurate, but it sure looks a lot better to me. As I understand it now, Mobius is coming out with a new version of this kit, and judging by the amount of detail they've put into the Reimagined kits, or I should say the kits from the Reimagined series, I can only think it's going to look pretty awesome. So just go figure, just as I finish this one, a better kit comes out. But oh well, what can you do? Anyway, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I'll be featuring some of my other kits pretty soon here, so hope you'll continue to watch. And again, thanks a lot. I will see you soon.